Welcome to Leading the Way podcast, where you'll learn neuroscience-backed ways to lead more effectively and have more fun at work with what you already have. Hey there, it's Chris, and welcome to Leading the Way. I'm so excited that you're here with us today, and I'm even more excited for my amazing guest, Jessica Summers. Jessica, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. Before we jump right in, because I know we have a lot of awesome things to talk about, I want to tell people a little bit about you because they don't know about you yet. And you can also read this in the show notes, friends. But Jessica is a wife, mother of two. She was a fashion designer, boutique owner. She really was living the life and then lost it all. And she's got a great story and experiences about what led her into becoming who she is now. We'll let her tell you what that is, but she's a very successful author. She's got a new book called The Road to Now, From Tragedy to Triumph. She's also a coach and consultant. And one of the things I really love about her perspective is reminding us that anything can happen to any one of us at any time. And a lot of times we can make it about everything else but us and blame everyone else but us. I'm human. I've done that. I think everyone listen's done that part in their life. But there's a way that you can have a different attitude about this. And, if you really do lose it all, there's a path out. So long intro, Jessica. Really delighted to have you with us today.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for that. And so I guess we can get right into it and how I got here.
Sure.
So, I mean, never in a million years would I have thought that I would share all the good and the bad and the ugly, but that is also something that keeps us stuck, right? We're so stuck in how we're supposed to live life, what it's supposed to look like, and then what happens when it shows up in a totally different and completely different way. Like how do we respond?
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of what this is about too, is how do we respond? And so for myself, where I was, like you mentioned, I was married with children, and I was a fashion designer, and I had a boutique, and on the outside it looked like I had it all. And
Right.
in some sense that can kind of be um, a problem, because if you don't look like something's wrong, if you don't have an eyeball hanging out of your head,
Right.
then what are you complaining about? Right.
Ah.
So, and that's a kind of a big one, because that's what kind of led me down the path of, I mean, losing it all, because I didn't know. I mean, in retrospect, I didn't know that I didn't know how to ask for help
Mm.
in some areas, because the way I was raised, there is no such thing as depression.
Right.
Addiction is bad, you
Yeah.
bad, right?
Right.
It's so much, that you start to self-stigmatize,
Mm-hmm.
well, if I'm doing these bad things, I'm a bad person, I'm doing bad things. And it's real easy to get stuck in that.
Yeah. Yeah, so true. And it comes up, I would say, and you're the expert here, so this is really a question, but it comes up a lot in times of crisis. Like I know a lot of folks are experiencing job layoffs now, or having to lay off their staff. And that's either side of that equation, it's a really tough time. A lot of anxiety can come up. And I love how you mentioned too, the notion of, because of shame or whatever it is, we don't fully show up and aren't vulnerable. And of course, makes it really tough to help someone if you don't know they need help, right? I'm curious on your thoughts on folks that are, maybe going through layoffs and it can feel like it's the end of the world and they might lose everything. Any guidance for those folks?
Right. And I know how difficult, when you're in it, I know how difficult this could be to
Yeah.
hear, that it is a perspective. If you were to really sit down with yourself and say, because everything is learned. We've
Mm.
learned that if we don't do A, B, and C, that we're failing somehow or another. Well, that is not the path for everyone. So if you were to acknowledge that and say, I don't know why, I don't understand it, but just maybe there is something out there that is bigger, better
Mm.
for me, even if it's scary, because
Yeah.
all of that fear is all learned too. In From my perspective, so many things that we fear are illusions because
Mm.
it's been built up.
Right.
When we break it down, that scary monster is like this big.
Right. Right. No, it's so true. And I'm glad you say it that way. It can be really easy, I think, for a lot of folks. And I've been that way in previous my life to get caught up that you've got to have a job. And if you're out of a job, you need to immediately find a job. And what we can miss is what you said so well is, are there other things we can do for gainful employment? Right? That might not be the same thing. Could we take this time as a blessing, as hard as it is and as scary as it is, and we need to acknowledge that and not pretend like it's not. But once
Right.
we get past that first little blah of emotion, do we have an opportunity, like you said, like, is this how I really want to show up in the world? And it might be yes, it might be I can need to just hop in, or is there something different? Even if it's a side hustle, right? It doesn't have to be a black or white sort of thing here. There's a lot of middle ground. Um, as folks are doing that work, any guidance or suggestions for them you have from your perspective?
Well, because I understand so well of what we've learned,
Yeah.
it's what we've learned. So it is very difficult to get past, like, I know what I know.
Hmm.
But what we know keeps us kind of stuck in that as well. It keeps us from expanding to knowing better
Yeah.
or more. So if we could maybe sit down, and as scary as this might be, just sit down, and I advise every human on the planet to do this just to get better insight into who we really are. Sit down with the timer, if you like, for like 3 to 5 minutes, and sit
Mm.
down and thought dump. Some people
Mm.
call it brain dumping, and dump it out, because we are masters of swirling around in our heads
Right.
to the point of overwhelm that keeps us stuck.
Right.
To Right, and we can't move forward when we're so overwhelmed with, yeah, real life is happening. It is hard. These are some hard decisions to make. So where do you even start?
Mm.
Start by getting it out of your head,
Right.
right? And look at it and go, where am I going to start? One step at a time. And it really, that's how it starts.
Yeah.
That simple.
Yeah. No, that's great. And there's so much power in writing it down physically with a pen or pencil and paper versus just typing it out. And if that's all you have, that's all you have, or just saying it. But really writing it, there's a lot of interesting brain things that happen with that. And the other, I love what you said, is a lot of us can forget, even if we're aware of it. We have this thing called a reticular activating system, and its job is to keep us doing the same thing because anything new is a threat, even if it's better. And so
Yeah.
it's repeating the same messages 40,000 plus times a day. And unattended, it's going to be an autopilot and it's going to say the same stuff, which usually isn't lovey and friendly, right? It's you
Right.
suck and that kind of noise, but we can introduce different messages into that friend, and it really isn't trying to be, it's not an evil thing, I don't mean to make it that way, but it's just doing its job of keeping energy at a low level and preserving the species, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Do you have ideas about interjecting, I call them top hits, but different top hits on the playlist there for the RAS?
So that's, again, that's such a big deal too, because again, we it's there for a purpose, but that's exactly what gets in the way from us doing anything outside or different than we're accustomed to doing. And so
Mm.
if we're stuck in our fear for a perceived fearful thing, how are we supposed to move past that?
Right.
We have to acknowledge, though, okay, my brain, everything is going to go against me right now,
Hmm.
but I have got to push past it. I went in the very beginning, and this is why I share this. I was I was afraid to get out of bed. I mean, I was
Mm.
afraid of my own shadow, and
Hmm.
I had to start somewhere. And this is where that thought dumping comes in. And I would go in, and what are the patterns? Where do I keep repeating the same things? What is that negative self-talk?
Yeah.
And you pull that out and you try, and it's again, as simple as this is, and this is again how we will get in our own way. It's too simple, it's stupid. I don't want to
Right.
hear this bullshit. Excuse my language.
Yeah.
That's how I used to talk to myself. It's too easy. It's
Right.
too simple. Give me some meat. I work hard. I don't need this stuff.
Right.
That's what gets in our way. But that's exactly right. It's the opposite of what we know. It's the
Mm,
opposite of everything that we've done.
mm,
So we take that negative and we find the positive in that negative and turn it around into a positive affirmation. And it's personal to us because it's what we've been saying to ourselves in the negative, but we're turning it around into a positive.
nice.
I had sticky notes the all over the wall. So when I
Mm,
went to bed at night, I saw them. When I woke up in the morning, I saw them because my old self did not believe one single positive, not
mm,
one single thing did I believe, but I said it and I repeated it until I started to believe it,
right.
until I could make this next steps and the next moves. And if you keep going, you will get to wherever your wildest dreams, really.
Right. No, it's so interesting too. And there's parts of my life where I've done this well and parts I haven't, where we do that consistently. It's really interesting how our brains, or especially our frontal cortex, becomes a problem-solving machine. Like it wants to make this thing true. And it's not like you're lying to yourself. It feels like that at first, but you're saying, hey, this is what I want. And then it gives the permission for literally for your cortex to go like, okay, how am I going to create this for Jessica, for Chris, right? Um, anything in your life you feel comfortable sharing where you were able to make that transition using what we just talked about?
Well, so going back to my whole crashing and burning,
Yeah,
there was because of my behavior. I mean, rightfully so, we've all been brought up in the same world where certain behavior and actions and drug addiction and
right.
um you get maybe called some names and people
Sure.
don't want anything to do with you. And I mean, I ended up homeless and alone.
Mm,
And it was very difficult to fight past, again, what I thought I knew.
mm.
But I also had an experience that I'm not a religious person. I've always had God in my life,
Uh-huh.
but I didn't really, because of some experiences, I really didn't know what that meant for me.
Gotcha.
But I had this experience where I had almost OD'd. It wasn't what I was trying to do.
Mm,
And I had asked God right then and there, I said, why would you want me to suffer so bad?
mm,
And I heard him and it came over my entire being. And what should have killed me, I got up and I had a new sense of knowing without knowing that everything was going to be okay. I didn't know
mm.
what that looked like yet, but my everything I knew without doubt was exactly what was killing me.
Mm,
So, what if I gave into the notion that I could turn that around? That everything that I thought I knew could be, maybe it wasn't a truth. Maybe there was
mm.
something bigger.
Right.
Maybe everything that I've known was kind of made up to once upon a time to protect me.
Right.
It worked at a time, but
Right.
I don't need it now. So, what
Right.
if I start shedding those layers and letting them go to evolve and expand into the person I've always been and originally was to begin with,
Mm,
just like every single one of us.
mm.
And we're all capable and can do that as soon as we kind of let go and surrender to, I know what I know. I know what I need.
Yeah. It's so powerful too because spirit, heart, whatever it is for people, right? Most folks have some sort of calling, North Star, pull to that, right? When we're able to maybe stop the noise just a little bit. It's interesting how meditation and yoga and things like that are catching on in the Western culture and more normal. Um, and that's where this can show up really easily for folks like, oh, this is where I want to go. And with what you're saying, it's we don't need to make it about, oh, I shouldn't, I should experience joy. I should experience pain and work hard. Or, I'm being lazy if I go for this. And it
Mm,
can be really easy, I think, for folks to run away because that's sort of a maddening thing. Like, I can't get this thing that I love, so I'm going to run away and turn to drugs or other things to escape the pain, right? And
right.
then there's the shame spiral with that, which is horrible. And I commend you for coming out of that. That's a very tough spot to be in. Um, but it's interesting too. A lot of us might not experience homelessness or drug addiction, but we can get really close to those same behavior patterns with checking out of who we are every day at work, right? And pretending like we're someone else and don't get to have all the things we want in our life, right? Um, with the folks you work with, without naming names, obviously, and the services you provide, like how do you help bolster them, right? And get them more in touch with their spirit, their heart, their calling, things that they really want.
Right. And I think, right, I think, again, this is why this is my mission and my purpose is I see because of the fact of where I went, that
Mm,
there's nothing, I mean, you can't get any more shameful,
yeah,
um, than the path that I went on.
right.
And if I'm going to openly share that with you, I invite you to do the same.
Mm,
And it majority of the time, because of my experience and because I can open up about everything,
right.
it the walls that people hold up start to dissipate because we're so used to trying to show up in the manner that we think that we have to.
Right.
Isn't it a kind of a relief that okay, I don't have to do it here. And
Yeah.
once you start doing it, you start doing it. And
Right.
the more you go, okay, I can start letting some of this go. I don't have to hold on to it.
Mm,
The more the world and all of the possibilities, it all opens up to you. But you have to
right.
make that first step. And I think that first step really is to acknowledging that it's okay not to be okay.
Hmm.
It's let it go. I mean,
Yeah.
really, it serves no one to keep pushing so hard to be someone that you're not. And
Right.
it's not that you're doing anything wrong. It just means imagine this. There's a better version of you as soon as you let go.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, as you're saying that too, I reflect like the flip, or not flip, but a slightly different side of that is if you're a leader and you have, someone on your team, work team, church team, whatever it is, or family team, and you notice that they're struggling, right? Or maybe they have some undesirable behavior. Instead of putting them on the equivalent of performance improvement plan, right, and going for compliance here,
Mm,
you've got a pretty powerful opportunity to connect with them and like ask how you can help. And that's a vulnerable spot for both. And you do need to really mean it as a leader. This isn't
yeah,
a placating thing.
yeah,
But boy, when you can do that and when you have that conversation and maybe you can't provide resources, but at least you reached out, the engagement of that employee from a leader's perspective is going to be off the charts different than I'm just going to put you in a performance improvement plan,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's such a different world. Or assuming that whatever it was some cultural norm. And yes, there's extremes here, right? If someone's being abusive at work, take care of that. That's not what I'm talking about, but
Right, right.
maybe they blurted something out that they normally don't, or they're struggling and they used to be a high performer. Um, any high level coaching suggestions you have for leaders that are noticing that in their teams, and what they can do?
So and that's such a big one too. you said so, like blurting something out that wasn't like their norm.
Right.
We've been so conditioned to react to behavior,
Yeah.
right? Instead of taking a moment and questioning why that behavior is there and
Yeah.
how can I help in that sense. And like you said too, it's like night and day.
Yeah.
I noticed, how can I be there for you? Let's figure this out together.
Mm,
People don't behave outside of their norm unless they're in a situation that they themselves don't know how to get themselves out of.
right. 100%.
Right? They're asking for something to happen, for some kind of change,
Right.
right? And they don't know how to do it themselves. But again, we've been programmed to, you
Yeah.
got a problem, fix it. Well, what happens when you don't know how?
100%. Yeah. And it's, um, I'm only smiling because a colleague of mine was giving a great example of this. And you're right. A stressor comes in the moment, we don't know how to handle that stress, or maybe in other moments we can. And so our brain chemistry is going to put us in fight, flight, freeze. Those are the
Mm-hmm.
only options. It's not fight, fight, freeze, and get over it and have a nice day. That's
Right,
it, right?
right, exactly.
Um, and I laugh because we have that expectation, like, oh, you should just be able to get over it. I'm like, right then, they don't have that, and they don't want to be there.
Right.
Um, and we can miss that, right? We could like, well, everyone else is doing it. Well, maybe they're not. They might not be vocal, but internally they might be screaming and dropping the F-bomb at you, right? They just
Yep.
don't see it. I'm only laughing though, really quick. I had a colleague that teaches this work really well, and she was saying, okay, so imagine that I just told you you need to go teach Swahili in sub-Saharan Africa tomorrow. We're flying you out right there, and you need to teach Swahili. Well, I don't speak Swahili. Many listeners maybe do, but most of us don't speak Swahili, probably listening. So, oh, you don't speak Swahili. Well, let me give you a big money reward. Here's $1 million, but you still need to go speak Swahili. Well, the money did nothing. I still don't know how to speak Swahili, right? I need help because I don't have that skill. And it sounds silly and funny, but we're asking the same darn thing of folks that are struggling with this. And I love how you brought up some of these things are really simple. It's not 6 months of therapy and other things. It's just connecting and assuming the person wants to do well, right?
Right. And I have to, I'm like laughing and smiling too, because I have this analogy that I share all the time saying it's like getting mad at me for not speaking Japanese when I don't know how to speak Japanese.
Right.
So it's so funny that you have that analogy because, right? Are you going to yell at me to do something that I don't know how to do?
Right.
Just because you can doesn't mean that everybody can. So what can that's part of like a team, right?
Right.
Who's good at what,
Right.
allow them to do what they're good at,
Right.
and allow everybody else to do good at what they're at. Stop trying to force people to do something that they cannot just because that's what your expectation is.
Right.
Hey,
Right.
who is that team member? Who is whoever you're talking to really? What are they good at and allow them to do that? Imagine that scenario where
Mm.
everybody is just flourishing in what they're good at instead of trying to do it all
Right.
and crashing and burning because they're
Right.
not allowed to just shine where they can shine
I love
because
that.
everybody has that.
They do.
But we
They,
can't when we're like,
yeah.
again, getting mad at people for not speaking Swahili or
Right.
Japanese when they don't know how.
Right. And it's interesting. We both pick language and it really is language, even if it's English. Yeah. The other thing I'm pondering too is, okay, after you've had that empathetic moment and you're looking to play to that person's strengths or get them the support they need or set them up for a win, I think there's also an opportunity to say, hey, my friend who's struggling, coworkers, whatever the name is, um, what are your ideas for this? Right. Because all too often we don't help build up the ideation skills which are probably lacking or they wouldn't be there. I don't know if you've seen that with your clients, but like where we can engage and help, and it takes time. But what are their ideas to solve the problem? Because then you're not carrying all that load on you as a leader. You've enabled your team to be the problem solvers, and honestly, they're going to kick your ass and blow doors off of you if you let them. Forget my language, but have you seen that where you can build up problem solving in folks that maybe look stuck before?
Well, and see, and that's a thing. And first of all, that kind of whole cultural shift in assuming because I am the leader that
Mm,
you're all down there and I'm up here and I'm the problem solver and I'm this, that, and the other.
right.
And it's like, first of all, what are the roles in your head that you're creating for yourself? Can you
Mm,
even fit those?
right.
Right. So there's that problem there.
Yep.
And then you're assuming certain things and certain roles instead of, isn't that a team? Isn't this what we like? What is team building, right? It's like we talk about
Yeah.
all these teams, and it's like you can't carry out or do your best unless everyone on the team is involved. So
Mm,
it takes everyone. So it
right.
means sitting down at a round table where we're all eye to eye and we're coming up with best solutions together. That it
Yeah.
doesn't matter that you're the leader, you're the one who will facilitate and get it all handled when you all come up with a solution by
Yeah.
everybody being able to have a voice in it. No matter what their position is, you're still a part of that team.
Right. Right. Yeah, 100%. And I think that can be hard for leaders if they've have experience of seeing that solution that's being brought up, maybe not succeeding. That doesn't mean that you can't still engage as a leader and said, "Hey, I've got this concern. I've seen this pattern before. How do we solve for that?" Right. So you can still share your expertise and keep your team from going into, an implosion. Um, but you said it so well. When it's the team's idea, just like a parent-kid relationship, they're very similar. Um, they're gonna do it. They're gonna show up. They're gonna be engaged like 1,000,000% more than you saying top down, this is how we do it, and this is the way, and this is right and this is wrong. I mean, it's a
Right.
totally different experience.
It is a totally different experience because it's also, if the team is involved,
Right.
everybody has each other's backs, right? You're all invested in it just as much as the next person. We
Yeah.
all want the same outcome. We're all giving, if there's somebody barking at me telling me what I need to do and
Yeah.
not listening to a word I have to say, I don't care if I'm part of the team or not. I'm going to kind of hang back and be like, I don't even know what to do because
Right.
I'm not even being heard. Right. So
Right.
it takes everybody. And the more
Right.
you listen to each other, the better the outcome is 100% of the time.
Right. Right. And just there's so many massive soft skills and humanity gains here, but just from a dollars and cents for my friends that are hard left brainers and CPAs and stuff, the engagement rate being higher means the chance of someone leaving is a lot lower. It's like 50% cost of an employee leaving and all the knowledge left and the disruption. So there's hard money gains in this stuff too. It might sound soft and squishy. The other is there are a lot of stats in this, but Gallup did a poll recently that we have the lowest employee engagement in decades. We're at like 30% engagement, which means 70% of the time the employee, staff member, lovely human is not showing up to their full potential. So like imagine if that was double the productivity gains you'd have, and the enjoyment at work, right? And so there's hard financial gains
Yeah.
with this really simple approach, and it doesn't cost really much to do. Like,
Right. Right. And see, and this is again too where that learned behavior, right?
yeah,
And the I know what I know and I got to be tough and I got to whip everybody into shape. It's like,
right,
okay, where has that gotten you?
right,
Where are you now? Where is
right,
the problem in that behavior? You're stuck exactly where you were before.
right,
Imagine changing that mindset. It has nothing to do with like soft and squishy. It just means behaving like a human being for the best possible outcome for everyone involved.
right.
And the financial gains, they'll happen
Oh yeah,
by
big time,
doing that, right? Because
big
that's not
time,
even an issue. That is not even an issue. It'll
right,
happen.
right. The other you mentioned this, we haven't dove into it a little bit, is the authenticity of any individual contributor, but a leader too, right? A lot of times we can make up a story. A leader has to be strong all the time, and there's there's a balance here. There's times where that is important to have a really strong front and help, you know, be consistent for folks. But the times that you can be vulnerable and admit like you don't know or you screwed up or need to ask for forgiveness, I would argue that those even build you up stronger as a leader because now I can relate to you as a human, right? You're not some robot, as one of my coworkers used to say when I would screw up and own it. She's like, I'm glad because you're not a robot. Um, do you see that as well when folks can be authentic, even if it's something they're shameful about? And you have to be careful about what those are in the workplace. I get it. But do you see that creating connection?
100% of the time. I have never, in my experience, seen where, and I'm trying to like, I'm spinning through right now, am I sure what I'm saying? Like, because you're good at what you're good at, but
Mm,
you're also a human being,
mm,
right? So just because you make mistakes, just like every other human being,
yeah.
doesn't take away from the fact that you are a leader, that you know what you're doing, that you're good at your job, right? So imagine stepping out with all of your knowledge and who you are with a little humility.
Mm,
It is a completely different way of being.
yeah.
Oh, we could change the world.
Yeah.
And I
No, it's very
seriously,
true. It's very true. And it so quickly builds connection. And it also gives the freedom for other people to say, yeah, I screwed up and I'm sorry. And how do I make it right? And you know, people will have all the time in the world for someone raising their hand and said, I make a mistake. It's the moment we try to hide it that as a leader, you have to be careful. I'm like, uh-oh, what other nefarious things would this person do? Awful to go there, but you have to think about that, especially if you're like an insurance or finance or something, right? Like, do I have a bad actor on my team? Versus, I blew it. I sent this thing. I didn't mean to send this thing. It was the wrong thing to do. I need help. I'm going to be all about helping that person, right? Because,
think about the message actually that you're sending out
yeah,
by your leader, whoever it is, stands
yeah,
up and says, I'm owning what I did
yeah,
and I'm going to do better next time.
yeah. Yeah, I've been lucky enough to see that happen at a super macro level where the company decided to do that. So they made a big mistake that went against everything about them. I'm not going to mention the company to protect them, but and they 1,000,000% owned it and they lost money on that ownership. But I can tell you that the reputation they had just soared. Like,
Yeah.
and it's an industry where reputation's really low. Like where the NPS score, Net Promoter Score is like a 20. So that puts you at like Comcast and other people that you don't like dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
They were around there and they nearly doubled it after this. And all they did was
Yeah.
show up and own it and step into that. Yep, we made this commitment and let's get back there instead of pretending or lying or all the noise that we see.
Right.
And it's a pretty simple choice. It can feel dangerous, but it's just about being authentic and showing up and owning it.
Yes. And again, like, look at what happens when you show up like that. When you show up like that, you
Yeah,
show up like that for everybody because you draw in
right.
exactly the same people. The people that are like, okay, I can do that too, then I can stand up authentically, me,
Right.
myself, and I. And then again, when you do that, then you show up as a better version of yourself. You
Mm,
function at a different level,
mm,
right? When you're working for somebody that you don't respect,
mm-hmm.
just because they're the leader or your boss or whoever, if you don't respect them, you're not going to work hard for them. You don't want to, you don't care.
Right.
So you don't take care of yourself. Imagine seeing someone in front of you that's like, I make mistakes. This is what I just did.
Yeah.
It People start to straighten up and sit up a little higher. They, oh, okay, maybe I can take an internal view at myself,
Right.
right? A leader is that all the good, the bad, the ugly, stand up strong in it and go, I'm a human being, but I'm going to do better next time. You want to
Yeah.
come with me?
Yeah. And all the people that want to engage are going to show up so much differently. I've seen it
Yep.
for 30 years. So yeah,
Yes.
fully
Yes.
true. Jessica, I know a lot of folks listening to this are going to be really excited about it and maybe not sure how to make it happen in their life or their work life. What are great ways folks can engage with you and make this happen?
Right. So I uh I always say this, and I know it's not the easiest thing all the time. So I have, on my website is jessica-summers.com.
Uh-huh.
And there's like a little, you can either a Calendly link there, but also if you're just not even sure, you don't want to make an appointment, maybe you want to write a little note, whatever, make that first step, because
Mm,
the first step could be the first step to the rest of your life. It is something, even if your mind is telling you this is stupid, I know what I'm doing, because I was that same person. I
mm,
knew what I knew because that's how I grew up. You got a problem, you fix it, you work hard, and look where it got me. And I had to totally change the way I thought.
hmm.
And I want to help as many people as I can, because we're all capable of that. We all have that in us.
Yeah.
We've just learned so many things that keep us from it.
So true and so powerful. And for folks driving or on the treadmill, Lisa's in the show notes, so don't hurt yourself. You can find all the links there and the links to Jessica's new book as well. Uh, so delighted to have you on Leading the Way, Jessica, and I'm excited for folks that are going to engage with you after hearing your story and knowing how you work and knowing your ethos. Before we close out, I love to ask all my guests, what's something you're thankful or grateful about today?
Every morning now that I wake up and put my feet on the ground, it makes me emotional, actually.
Mm,
I have the opportunity to live my life, to take a breath of fresh air and have opportunity everywhere I look. And opportunity means that I want to make change. I want to have that conversation. I want to say whatever I possibly can to make you say, okay, I can do this too. I can
mm,
change my life. I can change where I'm at. I can be a better version of myself. Because when we all do that for ourselves, because we've thought about this like self-love or taking care of ourselves, it's such a negative, and it's actually the complete opposite. When you learn about who you really are and how you tick and how you take care of yourself,
mhm,
you show up and lead by example.
mm.
You just, right, you show up for everybody. I mean, there is a generational trauma healing. I mean, you have no idea to the extent it goes when you just stand up as yourself.
Mm.
And I wish that for everyone, because it affects us all. We're all connected. We really are.
Oh, I love that, Jessica. Thank you so much for being a guest on Leading the Way and powerful conversation. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It was a joy. Thank
Oh,
you.
my pleasure. And folks listening, please be sure to like, subscribe, and do all those magical things so you'll keep seeing awesome guests like my friend Jessica and keep leading the way. Take care, everyone. Thank you for listening to Leading the Way podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe so you won't miss other great episodes like this one. And if you're ready for more in your workplace, be sure to go to aintent.com. You'll find lots of free tools, assessments, and ways to engage directly with us to get your own epic results. We'll see you there.